Hello and welcome to another fully live running on Hacker Time episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and I have been live for the last 20 minutes, but due to a bug in Restream, I didn't notice that we actually weren't broadcasting. So sorry about that, everyone. I at least have practiced this stream, and I am live at the Design Lab supply frame that is going to be the site of Hackaday Supercon. So I am here as a guest doing some volunteering, helping to make the badges for the conference. And while I'm not allowed to show them, they're definitely going to be showing off the SAOs or simple add-ons that will be created by various attendees for the conference. Yes, and definitely a little bit echoey. I am in a room that is pure glass with almost no furniture. So this is basically the worst case scenario for echo. So I will do my best, but I'm having to rely on these AirPods in order to kind of clean things up. Anyway, yeah, so lots to talk about today. In particular, every year, the last 2 years now, I've been volunteering at Supercon a couple weeks before the conference to help solder up the badges and try to get other people involved. So if you are in the Pasadena area and you're looking for a free ticket to the conference, then definitely consider coming to Supply Frame. It is beautiful. It is really cool to be a part of the conference by putting together these badges. And like I said, I think they're really cool this year because they're really going to let these SAOs that people are designing shine. So I've already seen some of these SAOs and they're really cool. I actually didn't realize that some of them can be used to control others. So for example, I was shown a SAO that you can plug into a badge and then kind of like run your finger around it and it'll turn up another SAO that's also attached to the badge. So being able to have multiple things plugged into your badge and then be able to control them through, I think that that's super cool. As always, there's a little bit of chaos over here. I'm doing some, I guess like surgery cleanup after some of the boards were repaired for a unspecified reason that I cannot disclose. But overall, it seems like the team here has made the best of things and has been able to make a lot of very flexible design decisions that allowed them to get everything done. So I'm very impressed by what I see here. I have so far processed, I think maybe 40 boards or so, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. So if you're around for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of November, then Hackaday Supercon is gonna be totally worth it. I myself have bought a ticket and I think I'm earning an extra one, hopefully here today, if I do get back and help them solder a little bit more. So lots to show off today. I also wanted to point out, I think last week I was talking about my own SAO. I was talking about my simple add-on I was designing, and I was trying to insanely do some PCB art. So there's an SAO I wanted to show off on the stream. They told me they weren't sure if they wanted to show it off yet because it's one of the ones that's going to be going with the badge, and the design hasn't been shown yet. So the author might not want it yet. But it has a kind of translucent center where it's glowing through with the exact same side-lit LEDs that I'm going to be using in my design. So I got to kind of, consider what I wanted mine to look like and then see, okay, this is pretty close to what I was hoping for. So I wanted to show off where I have progressed to in KiCad. So I tried to use Easy EDA to do this, and unfortunately, Easy EDA does not really support or it doesn't really have the kind of art tutorials that KiCad does. If you want to look online and find a learn PCB arts in 45 minutes or something video, it's almost always going to be on KiCad. And some of them are actually pretty recent too and take advantage of some of the new built-in features of KiCad 8, which is the version I'm attempting to learn on. So there's always kind of like an argument back and forth where like, oh, you should learn on a classic version that has lots of guides, or oh, you should learn on the most recent version because it has all the features that are nice for manufacturers that simplify things or save time. I'm trying to use the newest stuff, and I'm not sure if that's going to be the best decision. I guess we'll find out. My SAO now has multiple layers. We're talking front, back. It's really gotten a bit complicated. So here, if I show the back copper as going away, you can see this, and then the solder mask are what I have added and subtracted here. So I just want to explain a little bit of each of these layers as I add them, so you can see what I've done to create this board. And I also want to show off, before I go through layer by layer, the result, because like, why do you want to sit through this if you don't get to see what it looks like? Well, let me show you what the render looks like. This is how the board looks. So let's see, is it Yes, okay, cool. So this is how the board looks. So I wanted to use copper artistically and use it as a component of the art. And I also wanted to have it glow through. And if I move this around, you can see I can actually see the copper from the other side. I'm not sure if the actual PCB will be like that, but it does indicate that this is bare. There's no solder mask here. There's no silk screen. There's no copper on the back. It's just bare fiberglass or FR4. So that's as translucent as I'm going to be able to get. And that means that when I put my glow through LEDs around here, like facing outwards, then these should all kind of be divided into color segments. And we'll see exactly how good that actually looks once I get it done. So I started my wiring. You can see there's copper pads here that are available for the component that I'm going to place on the back. That's the ESP32S30 that I'm using. And then I still have to place the LEDs, but overall, this is more or less what I'm looking for. So on the front, again, I'm using a silk screen layer to do the cat. I am doing a cutout on the solder mask to allow the cat to have glowing eyes, and then also to make this area translucent. And then I'm putting the copper layer on top. So I guess I just actually did what I said I was going to do on the other one, but we can also just remove things and see, okay, this is the front copper layer. That's what it looks like without the copper added. The back copper layer mostly affects, just the components and such. Like right here, if I were to remove it, you would see, well, I guess you wouldn't see much. Yeah, okay, I guess you wouldn't see much. But then if I remove things like the silk screen on the front, you'll notice it becomes much more simple. And then finally, the solder mask is the last layer that I've been playing with here. So, and then at that point, it's just bare. It's just a bare board. So again, like I've made some progress on making this more artistic, on making it something that other people could maybe follow along with if they wanted to try out some of these more advanced art techniques, like making a board glow from behind. So I imagine I'm probably going to end up making this into like a Varonis badge as well. So this is my first try through, but after I get this working, presuming I can get it working, then I'm also hopefully going to be able to use a similar design for making other types of badges. And I know the software is working on this because I've tried it out already. So now it's just a matter of getting this wire, which is what I'm going to be showing off next week. So that is my progress in my SAO. I'm not sure if I'm going to really be able to order very many for this conference or if they're going to come in on time, but I've got all the components. So I feel like the pressure is on me now to see if I can get a rush board or two here in time and show off the concept. Oh, thank you, 8BitOni. I appreciate that. KiCad looks very intimidating, but was very interesting to be able to do this kind of work. Yeah, I found KiCad to be super intimidating. It felt like the first time I opened Wireshark. There's so many things that I'm like, oh my God, I hope I don't need this. Cause it's like 4 whole sections of controls that like I've never heard of in my life and seem like way too complicated for me to want to touch. So try to make a simple board if you're a normal person. For example, I made a very simple board that was just like a cat, and the cat was black and white, and then I gave it, gold eyes. But it was more complicated than I thought. I actually had to like black out the cat's eyes with the solder mask to make the copper shine through. Like there were other things I had to do that were not super intuitive. So some of it is just mapping things out properly. I have a whiteboard that shows every single layer of this design the way that I imagine it, and then when I put it down and have the render of it and it doesn't look right, that's where I have to go back and think about, like, do I have these layers in order? Am I thinking about them properly? Is there something that's covering something that I want to show through? So it was a little bit of a chaotic process, but I do have to say there's some really good guides online. And while most of them are a little frustratingly not thorough, and I think that I would like to make my own version of that, I do think that they make it seem like it's not that much of a hack to get this kind of awesome artwork out of a printed circuit board, even if it is your first time. So I wasn't able to find any good guides on using Easy EDA to make, for example, copper artwork on a board. So as a result, like I'm learning it in KiCad, and I find it to be not as exhausting as I thought. Like, selecting a footprint, creating a custom footprint. We actually, I think, went over that in the last live stream I did. So I'm also going to show how to make a custom component and then wire it. That's going to be like, I think probably the next thing I cover. So if you're following along, I might just cut them out and make like a learn KiCad as a beginner segment as well, because I'm really enjoying it. And I think it ended up not being as difficult as I thought. It's just like my eyes cross as soon as I get to like 45 minutes of it. I'm like, I'm done. All right, so I want to also talk about a little bit of news that I broke. Where is it? I think oh, here it is. Okay, I did this whole, you guys, I did this entire segment already, but let's talk about eSun. So I'm an eSun customer. They make 3D printed, filament that is really good. And I like it. The community really likes it. So I signed up for an eSun account because I order a lot of it, and I got this email that said, important notice, due to a website system update, we have migrated your account information to the new system. In order to ensure the security of your account, we have reset all the login passwords, and the default password after reset is the same as your email account. So basically your login email account is now also your password, meaning everybody's password is completely predictable, and all you need is their email address in order to log in. And that means if you just have a list of email addresses, you can just attempt to log in, and every single person that has a eSun account, you can now log directly into their account. So that obviously makes them pretty vulnerable to brute forcing attacks, and a lot of people did not like this. So they quickly offered this follow-up, which said, due to our negligence, we did not consider the security of your account information. We apologize to you for our mistake and remove the default login option as soon as we received feedback from our customer service to avoid the risk of information leakage. The system upgrade is to serve you better. Any problems during that period, you can feedback to me again. I will be happy to receive your feedback and adjust the website in time. So I really like this company. Like, they make an excellent product. Oh yeah, James also probably, seems to have some of their filament. So it's widespread within the 3D printing community. They're just really good at that, but perhaps they have not invested sufficiently in their security department, or maybe their marketing department just has free reign over the entire company. I don't know. But either way, this got a negative reaction from a lot of people. At least I certainly had a negative reaction to it. And I slid this tip to Bleeping Computer to see if they wanted to write it up. So I don't know if they will end up talking about it, but the news is out there now. James says, why not an email reset? Yeah, the most normal thing in the world is to just send people a link to reset their password at their email address, not to reset it to a predictable value. I've never, ever seen this before. So I just wanted to shout that out as like my little personal security story of the week. Like, you never know how your data is going to get breached, but sometimes you just get a feeling. All right, so next up, I'm going to get started with the rest of the security news. Seeing as I have a single screen this time, it's a little bit harder to switch. All right, cool. So OpenAI is confirming that threat actors have been using ChatGPT to write malware. And really is that surprising, really? Like, we were talking a couple of weeks ago about how there was some unusually well-documented malware that usually people try to obfuscate the functions, and they go out of the way to make it so it's difficult to analyze. But somebody who's using ChatGPT to write their functions gets two benefits. One, they get the anonymity of a tool that basically anybody can access, writing their code in a way that it tends to write code. So it hides their fingerprints. It's kind of interesting. But also, you get this well-documented code where if you are not a threat actor that's particularly sophisticated, then it means that you can use code that you barely understand. So if you're able to get it, with something like the grandma escape, where you tell it that your grandma used to read the instructions for creating highly sophisticated malware to you, like before you went to bed every night, and you miss her so much, and you wish that it could recite it for you, then one of these escapes could allow someone who doesn't have the skills to write like ransomware themselves to write a piece of ransomware. So I'm not surprised about this, but what's interesting is how they are using it. So there are a lot of different adversaries who are out there using LLMs. And you can see the different categories here of how they're kind of like talking about the way that they're using them. But we've got asking about vulnerabilities in specific applications, asking how to search for specific versions of Log4j. So basically having it write like a Log4j detector, asking about popular content management systems used abroad, so basically LLM informed reconnaissance. So if you're able to if you are able to mitigate the fact that it's going to lie to you sometimes, you can use it to focus in on a specific target by giving it the scope of what you're looking for and letting it find a target that is likely to be vulnerable or likely to not maybe have the most recent patches. Let's see, we have LLM assisted vulnerability research with asking how SQL map would be used to upload a potential web shell to a target server. So basically like, all right, how would I actually abuse this feature? Like what would be the malicious version of this? Asking for help finding ways to exploit infrastructure belonging to a car manufacturer. So like being like, hey, like if you were a hacker, like how would you attack this? Providing code and asking for additional help using communications services to programmatically send text messages. So being able to contact a victim via text, asking for help, debugging the development of an extension for a cybersecurity tool, LLM enhanced scripting techniques. That's interesting. LLM aided development is also then asking for help developing a actual piece of code you're going to use in a larger framework. So basically outsourcing a freelancer who would normally do that development work to an LLM. And then we have LLM supported social engineering, asking for themes that government department employees would find interesting and what would be good names for attachments to avoid getting blocked. And then asking for variations of an attacker provided job recruitment message. So that's supported LLM supported social engineering again. So if you were running a scam, right, and you wanted ideas for your scam, or if you have a tool that you want to develop, but you don't have the time to do it yourself and you want to scale up your malware techniques, if you wanted to maybe like do a little bit of reconnaissance on something and assess whether or not it's worth it to attack a particular type of computer or address a specific vulnerability like Log4j, it's out there. The information is just a single call to an LLM away. And it does seem like even though like OpenAI is attempting to shut down these accounts and give information about indications of compromise to companies that might be affected by anybody using these for malicious purposes, the list just keeps going and going for what people are using this for. You can check out the article if you want to dive into a little bit more about how hackers, like nation state hackers and other criminals who are attempting to use AI for malicious purposes are actually making queries and what those queries are attempting to do. I found this to be probably the most interesting piece of news of the week, just because I've always kind of wondered how adversaries were going to be able to use their creativity to make AI push their scams and other things further. All right, so let me make sure this is showing the right screen. Okay, yes, it is. All right, so next up, we have something that makes me paranoid. So if you've ever wondered if, maybe that too frequently popping up PIN request is actually malware, well, it turns out that that is a pretty prominent component of new variations of TrickMo, Android banking Trojans. This is something that is doing all sorts of malicious stuff. It has droppers to kind of install new functionality, do more malicious things. It's got a bunch of distinct commands, and it also will attempt to steal Android pins by doing a pop-up that looks like it's requesting your PIN, but instead is just stealing it. It's got capabilities for one-time password interception, screen recording, data exfiltration, remote control, and more. But really, the thing that gets me is the PIN. If you find like a funny PIN pop-up where like you've never seen it before, and it's asking for your Android PIN, you should be very suspicious, because sometimes they have a problem matching things to a theme. But overall, like they're able to do some abusing of accessibility functions where like they can do overlays on top of the screen. They can do other things that make it so they can put an application on top of a banking login, and that will actually intercept your credentials, your one-time password, and then is able to do malicious banking functions. So just makes me paranoid. Like, I feel like I have enough paranoia already with my phone, where if I have to be suspicious of my PIN as well, then it just adds to the list. But I hadn't really considered that that could be such a big target until I read the story. So if you have been noticing an unusual amount of PIN pop-ups, or if they just don't look right, then consider that it could be this new TrickMo malware. All right, next up we have another darknet going down. So this is, another Darknet Marketplace going down. This is Siptual, right? Dark web. And this is basically a marketplace that was doing what a lot of these other smaller ones have been doing for a while now, which is replacing the really large markets that have been taken down by European police agencies. So some of these smaller marketplaces are run by individuals. We just saw one taken down in Australia not that long ago, and another one taken down by Finnish officials who seized the website and then named specific operators. So it seemed like it was a medium-sized operation, 13.1 million euros of revenue generated. But yeah, I mean, not really too much compared to some of those really, really large darknet marketplaces that were taken down years ago. But still, these keep popping up in smaller iterations where there's not as many customers, like they're not as big, they don't attract as much investigation. But recently, people have instead been switching to like mobile applications or other things that don't involve a more centralized and open website. All right, this was a really interesting case, and I often think about how advertising enables malware delivery and all these other campaigns that otherwise just wouldn't be able to reach people. So North Korea was apparently able to inject malicious ads for code on toast. And this was a toast pop-up that had a zero-click malware capability where if you opened it on a vulnerable version of Internet Explorer, or rather, if you opened it and your computer contained like remnants of Internet Explorer still that were vulnerable, this would allow them to take control of your computer and do all sorts of other things. This is a type confusion flaw in Internet Explorer. And my general understanding was that you don't necessarily need to open this in Internet Explorer in order for it to affect you. Instead, if you have Internet Explorer components still on your computer, even after its deprecation, then we've already seen in the past this be used to trigger malicious activity. So this was a pretty sophisticated four-step process where a bunch of payloads were injected into the explorer.exe process, and it also evaded security tools. So I don't know, I was impressed by the fact that you could use an advertising campaign to force these pop-ups to appear and then infect computers based on a deprecated internet browser. Again, it's not the first time we've seen components left over from other like no longer supported browsers be used in these attacks, but they certainly, since they aren't updated very often anymore, or sometimes at all, are a attack vector that has been noticed by hackers and is being used actively to attempt to, I guess, like leverage advertising campaigns to attack a bunch of people all at the same time. All right, so this is a disruption of a distributed denial of service gang that has been pretty notorious. And they used like open proxies rather than compromised devices to initiate some pretty famous DDoS attacks. This is also there's a little bit of confusion here where some people were attributing it to Russia and saying that because they were primarily intervening in Russian-aligned causes, that it was a Russian proxy or something like that, but I guess they will be able to find out now. So the United States disrupting this by taking down their infrastructure and going after two brothers who were alleged to be operating Anonymous Sudan. So this is, two 20-year-olds who were alleged to be the people who are behind this. And they kind of were willing to work with just about anyone. And because they got a reputation for working with Russian-aligned causes, this was something that it seems like they are really going after. They are charged with conspiracy to damage protected computers and damaging protected computers, yeah. There's also a really interesting one here. So this was reckless endangerment of life. So this was against the Cedars-Sinai Hospital. And this might be the first time the statute has ever been used against people who have executed a cyber attack in the United States. So we've been talking about how we're trying to de-incentivize people to attack hospitals, water treatment facility, life in prison. That might be it. It seems as though they finally hit on a strategy that is very severe and targets people who are crossing those red lines where, if you go after like a mortgage bank or whatever, like, and you're messing with their ability for their customers to pay them. We see that all the time. And that's something that isn't going to get a government coalition to go after you. But if you attack like a hospital and you cause potentially deaths, then reckless endangerment of life, or even like more substantial charges if someone actually does die, that is, in my view, might actually be a proper charge. So we'll see whether or not they actually get sentenced for this, but it is notably the first time that charge has been brought against someone who has crossed that red line and gone up against like a hospital. We also might have another recipient for that. Let me see if I have that story up. Because there was a children's hospital that was also breached this week. Well, okay, I guess we'll see when it comes up. All right, so I wanna shout out this story as being absolutely crazy. This is the wildest one, I think. This is the FBI arresting an Alabama suspect who managed to make the price of Bitcoin spike by doing a SIM swapping attack against the FTC, no, the SEC, sorry, and basically saying that Bitcoin has now been legalized. It is now tender. And it is going to be listed on the stock exchanges. That obviously did not happen, but the output of that information was taken seriously, and as a result, Bitcoin jumped in price by $1,000, and then quickly plummeted by $2,000 after the person's account tweeted that the SE account had been compromised and the announcement was fake. So a major government institution announcing this, like on their confirmed account, is definitely a big deal. And I don't think that X's customer service is really like on point right now. They're still dealing with a lot. So having government accounts get hacked, spread misinformation, and manipulate markets is definitely something that they might end up starting to get in trouble for if it just keeps happening. Either way, this was a interesting use of a relatively like basic technique. Like we've been talking about SIM swapping forever. It's just the technique where hackers will talk to a person's phone company, switch over the service, and then they will do a bunch of password resets and use that access to intercept the two-factor authentication and get into that person's account. Pretty scary, and it is surprisingly effective. So when somebody does this, I mean, it's not a high sophistication attack. It's something where you just need a little bit of information and a convincing phone voice. So the fact that somebody did this and then potentially made a lot of money by manipulating the market is pretty surprising and has very real world consequences. I'm interested in seeing what they get charged with, but it definitely seems as though this was a bad idea and probably not worth it for the hacker that did this. All right, so we have also data wipers being sent to Israeli organizations. Now, this is something that we saw in Ukraine before, where Russia was not attempting to use like ransomware or even give the companies that they were hitting in Ukraine any sense of hope that their data would come back. Instead, they were attempting to get them to destroy the data in ways that were unrecoverable and do it as quickly and efficiently as possible. So when you see these sort of data wipers being targeted at companies and sent, it generally means that there's either a nation state or somebody else there who does not care about their money. They're willing to leave money on the table to cause maximum damage. And that appears to be what is the case here. It seems as though this adversary is targeting Israeli companies and attempting to not just, do ransomware or try to make money like normal cyber criminals do. They are making as pure of a cyber weapon as they can and just destroying as much data as possible with it. So this is a real threat. This is something where a lot of these attempts have come looking as though they are protection. And why this is a sophisticated attack is that a security company here was basically compromised and sent out what seemed like an update that was actually malware. So this is also from their domain and passes all the authentication checks, which is what most people will look like. So we'll look through in order to verify that an email is real. So I often see people going through phishing training and such, and it definitely seems as though most people would fall for this email. The domain seems okay. The email is from the proper vendor, or it seems like it. And then the email was hosted on a similar looking domain that was apparently used to trick people. So this is Living computer attempted to test the wiper on a virtual machine, but the executable automatically crashed. is interesting. Often that's done to like evade like researchers being able to figure out what's going on. It seems like an obfuscation attempt to make it so that you can't really read what's going on. But obviously, this sort of attack is high stakes. There's no possible way of negotiating with someone to get your data back. It is purely an attack that is going after data. So having a third party breached and then having that third party use its like authority to go after the customers is kind of a worst case scenario for them. So I certainly hope things are going a little bit better over there. But it is scary to see this company be used as an attack vector, sending out some of the most destructive cyber weapons you can unleash, because really there is no way that you can recover the data after it's been affected by something like this. So we also have Nidek confirming a data breach after a ransomware attack. So again, worst case scenario here being that the ransomware actors were asking for so much money, or they didn't want to give them any money, that they are not going to get their data back privately. Anyway, they might get their data back publicly after it is all leaked. Now, the tech giant says that this is not going to impact their business operations. It's mostly internal documents, letters from business partners, hopefully sweet ones, documents related to green procurement, labor safety and health policies, business documents, purchase orders, invoices and receipts, and contracts. So like, it would be, if this was like the social security numbers of all customers and employees, then that would be a much bigger deal. But it seems as though this is mostly internal business docs, and it's not something that the company is too worried about. So as of right now, they're saying it's not going to impact their business operations. So right in time for Halloween season, we have a new speculative attack. So speculative attacks arose many years ago, it feels like now. And it's something where a acceleration feature built into a lot of systems, Intel processors, and AMD's older microarchitectures will use speculative execution, where they guess the next execution that you are going to have it do. And because of that, if it guesses correctly, which it does most of the time, it's able to accelerate the performance by already having done that step. But researchers found that you could use that speculative learning to basically train it to do stuff that it's not supposed to do, and then use it to leak information that is sensitive and could allow you to gain further access to the system or leak other data. So this is a pretty sophisticated attack, but it has been incredibly difficult to patch. Once it was discovered, it has been mitigated and then opened up again, and mitigated and opened up again. So of all the high level, like kind of sophisticated attacks against systems that are difficult to patch, Spectre has been just the gift that keeps on giving. It is constantly giving new high severity vulnerabilities that allow leakage of information. But again, this does require some physical access, it seems like. Anyway, it does seem as though they are attempting to mitigate it, although AMD has apparently labeled this as a software bug, not a hardware flaw, which is debatable to say the least. AMD has confirmed the vulnerability, and it's being tracked. I think that they also have pushed out a microcode fix. So this is good. Microsoft is already under a little bit of fire for charging people for access to the advanced logs to kind of investigate breaches and then keep an eye on things. But Microsoft also warned that it just lost some of the data. And this apparently is not an attack. It was a misconfiguration or a bug that caused logs to be partially lost or corrupted. And this is something that affected a lot of different services. Each one of these has varying degrees of log disruption, but obviously logs are what defenders use to detect attacks. Like being able to go through the logs is really, really critical. So all of these being potentially disrupted or otherwise not recoverable means that it could delay some investigations, could make it really difficult to understand what's going on inside some systems. All right, so we have another one of these social engineering attacks that I just want to put out there, and I feel like a lot of people might fall for this. So if you know someone who might fall for this, then this is for them. Imagine you get a Google Meet link. This is maybe someone that you expected from, maybe not, but the Google Meet link is convincing. When you try to open it, you get a software error, and it tells you that you need to install a certain driver or something in order to make the meeting work. I think people just sit there and like think about all the times they've installed a driver and just make a malicious version of all of those as a social engineering attack. But that's basically what happens here. And this is my candidate for confusing graph of the week. It's not that confusing, but I just feel like it's not totally straightforward. And of course, as is tradition, I have to point out that the primary purpose of all of this is to install Luma Stealer, per always. In the end, it's always Luma Stealer. So we have this campaign as taking a number of different forms. We covered a version of this that was also using GitHub comments to make it seem as though somebody was posting a fix to an issue where they were like, hey, I fixed the problem, use software or use this library, it fixed it for me. Here are some of the ways that they were attempting to get people to install something they shouldn't. One of them is, I really like this, verification steps, verify you're a human. We showed this one off before, and basically when you press this key combination, it opens like a run box, and then if you press Control V and enter, it'll copy a script from this website and paste it directly into your command window and do a bunch of malicious stuff, and that's how you get infected. And then these ones are pretty similar. It just says, like, if you want this to work, then you have to fix it, which involves the same kind of trickery. So it is really funny how just using the right font and a little bit of design can make these look so official. But you should be very wary of the new Google Meet trap. It seems relatively simple. And when you look at these domains, they all look like meet.google.us, meet.google.web, like these all, meet.google.com. Like, it's just kind of preying on the fact that people don't understand that the actual domain is this. So well, you get the idea. There we go, is this. So by segmenting it up in this way and making it so the link looks legit, the first time you look at it, you're like, okay, all the components here look fine. We've got a .com, we've got a join, that's what I'm trying to do. We've got a meet.google. This all looks fine. It's just in the wrong order. So that's why I think this attack is kind of funny. It's like the phishing component of it relies on you jumbling up the order of a domain and thinking that the like it should be, like usjoin.meet.google.com or something like that. But instead, the fact that they've just registered us.join.com or web.join, I'm actually amazed that this was like available. Yeah, I'm not too surprised that these sorts of like technical scams where like it just tries to give you solutions to problems, but instead like you just have to do the same Luma Stealer installer, is going to be something that's probably a meme like week to week. Like, I think these people are not going to stop with their creativity and getting normal people to install Luma Stealer via some sort of like website problem where you're just popping up a command window and then pasting in malicious instructions. All right, so we've talked about undercover North Korean IT workers before, but now there's been a documented case where these IT workers who, the assumption is that they are working abroad to get funding for North Korea's various programs that they're sanctioned and can't get money for otherwise. The new rub on that is that after one of them was terminated, they stole sensitive company data and threatened to leak it. So they just switched straight into ransomware mode. And they were like, hey, we actually stole a bunch of data and we will leak it if you don't pay us. Here is, this graph isn't that confusing. We can see that we've got our North Korean IT workers, we've got laptop farms with credible IP addresses, and then we've got a whole lot of refusal to go on camera. So if you've got a coworker that just never ever wants to go on camera, I'm not trying to incite any paranoia here, and I myself love being off camera for meetings whenever possible. I'm just saying, if they never ever want to go on camera, then maybe, just maybe, they are a North Korean spy. Or, well, I mean, I would say they're just a North Korean IT worker, but if they're stealing your company's private data and then threatening to release it in retaliation for you terminating them, then it kind of seems like they're a spy. Oh, here we go, right. So in a gutsy move, the Lane ransomware group is claiming an attack on Boston children's health physicians. So those all seem like words that will get you slapped with that new charge, like reckless endangerment of life. So I don't know if they're going to be bringing like, potential life sentences to people going after like Boston children's health physicians, but it certainly seems like that would be a time to perhaps flex that charge. Again, a lot of ransomware operators will not go after things like children's hospitals or mass transit systems or water facilities because they don't have coalitions going after them. In this case, it does not seem like they care. They have stolen the full name, social security numbers, addresses, date of births, driver's license numbers, medical record numbers, health insurance information, billing information, and treatment information. It does say that this is limited and that their health records are in a separate system. However, a lot of their treatment information is included. So you might not be able to access someone's complete health record from this data, but it would include their treatment information, which is, that's like metadata, right? Like you can infer what conditions they have based on the treatments they've received. So it's kind of, in my view, the same thing. So I'm sure these people are the new contestants in our Who's Getting Free Credit Monitoring section of our show. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of recourse for victims of data breaches in the United States. So as a result, they are going to be getting a letter allowing them to be aware that their data has been breached. But overall, not a lot of great options for everybody impacted here. We also have hackers blackmailing Globe Life after stealing sensitive customer information. This, I didn't know that Globe Life has been around since 1900, but this was a previously disclosed data breach, and it seems as though the threat actors are attempting to negotiate. Globe Life is saying in their SEC filing, which, by the way, I love that that is now a requirement, that 5,000 of their customers and their subsidiaries are impacted. This number might also increase as the investigation continues, so possibly downplaying it a little bit. They said that the extortion attempt did not involve ransomware. So that means that there's no encryption, or if they paid, then they did it quickly and don't want it disclosed. But overall, the threat here is that that data potentially could be leaked. And I think this is the last story of the week. Iranian hackers acting as brokers. So this means that in order to raise money, Iranian hackers are becoming known for breaching all sorts of institutions. Some of them probably, like hospitals and stuff, something nobody wants to touch, and some of them probably easy for people who want to pick up some extra money doing various types of cybercrime. By being open to working with ransomware gangs, it's creating a cybercrime kind of ecosystem where Iranian hackers are able to find access to all these systems, including critical infrastructure, and then turn around and sell it to either ransomware gangs or nation states. So the initial access broker is something that is a well-documented section of the cybercrime market. It's people who only do phishing attacks, who only do initial access, and they don't get themselves involved in the further exploitation. They turn around and sell it off to other people at that point, having done part of the hard work. They leave the really high-profile stuff to other people. So Iran's role as a initial access broker is apparently accelerating as they're looking to raise money for, things and stuff. So as a result, it's just kind of an interesting note on why they have expanded so much into this segment of the cybercrime industry. North Korea has their IT workers out here like getting revenge and getting jobs to bring money back, whereas it seems like Iran is actually using their hackers to instead sell that access to third parties in order to raise money. All right, so that is just about all the time we have for this week. I have a lot of soldering left to do on the badges at Supercon. And again, if you are in town in Southern California and you want to check out Hackaday Supercon, I think there's still tickets left and it's absolutely worth it. I will be, as I said, personally working on these badges for the rest of the day and probably for a couple of days before the conference. And if you've got any time and you're in SoCal and you want to donate some to a great conference, I know they are still desperately looking for people to help out soldering these badges, and it's a lot of fun. The food here is great. So again, big shout out to Supply Frame and Design Lab in particular for having me out here to help solder and letting me do the stream in their lab, echoey as this glass chamber is. And of course, a big shout out to Varonis for being the sponsor of the stream for all this time. Still super cool that we hit 60,000 subscribers. So really, really happy about that. And if you want to support the stream, you can always go to varonis.com/Kody, that's Kody. Lets everyone at Varonis know you appreciate the stream, doesn't cost you anything, and it lets us keep going live every week, twice a week on Wednesday and Friday. So by next week, I should have my SAO finished, having all the wiring done. I know it's going a little bit slow, but it's hard, you guys. Like if you guys have noticed how difficult KiCad looks and how intimidating it is. So I got through it based on my flight, sitting down, really like focusing on it, watching some good tutorials. But man, like I said, my eyes cross after about 30 minutes of it. So It's really a lot. So thank you to everybody on the stream today. Sorry that I went live without all of you. I was reciting the stream with nobody watching for a good amount of time, but we will be live again on Wednesday. So if you have any questions that you want to put out before then, or if you want me to do any particular cloud security demos, I'm going to be doing another one. I just ran out of time to do it today. So, all right, everyone, thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see you next week on Wednesday. Goodbye, everyone.